Hello, I'm Lie Minamoto from the APO Secretariat. Today, we are broadcasting the Productivity Talk, live from Tokyo, Japan. The topic is Bridging the Gender Gap for Productivity, Lessons from the Philippines. Today's session will examine initiatives aimed at increasing female labor force participation, so-called FLFP, in the Philippines. It is said that gender diversity is one of the keys to improving productivity. Notably, the Philippines ranks 20th in the World Economic Forum's 2025 Global Gender Gap Index, achieving the highest position among APO member economies. Today, we will learn the experience of the Philippines and implications for other APO members. As the guest speaker, we are pleased to have Dr. Ronahlee Asuncion, a professor at School of Labor and Industrial Relations, University of the Philippines Diliman. Since her nickname is George, let me call her Dr. George. Good afternoon. How are you?
Yes, good afternoon, Ree, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Welcome to our productivity talk. Nice to have you for this important topic.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I will briefly introduce you to our viewers. Okay. So Dr. Ronahlee Asuncion, also known as Dr. George, has been engaged in academic research for more than 30 years. She has authored numerous publications on labor, gender equality, and occupational safety, and presented at international forums across Asia, Europe, and Africa. Her research spans workforce diversity, mental health, and productivity. Today, Dr. George will provide an in-depth analysis of the underlying factors contributing to the high rate of FLFP in the Philippines, as well as emerging challenges and future opportunities. Okay, Dr. George, if you are ready, you can start your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Ree, for that kind introduction. So, for this afternoon, I'm going to discuss bridging the gender gap for productivity lessons from the Philippines. Okay, so we know very well the importance of gender equality and female labor force. No, it has definitely economic benefits, and we know that women, no, according to this study, play a critical role as economic agents capable of transforming societies and economies. According to another study, advancing women employment could add $12 trillion to global GDP and boost some countries' economic output by as much as 39%. Okay. And also, when women become part of the labor force, no, according to this study by the Human Rights Careers, um, if OECD countries match Sweden in their female employment rates, the GDP would increase by 6 trillion. Okay. Maybe I need to have the PowerPoint bigger. Okay, thank you. And another study by UN, it says that empowering women spurs productivity and economic growth, and that the GDP significantly improves in a diverse workplace. Okay. Ma'am Gain in 2022 stated that expanded HR or human resources spike financial development, raising female work, according to this study, to be equivalent to male business levels could expand GDP by 34% in Egypt, by 12% in the United Arab Emirates or UAE, and by 10% in South Africa and by 9% in Japan. The OR briefing says that economies and organizations that promote gender equality benefit from a wider talent pool and increased productivity. So we can say, that there is a correlation between increased female participation in society and improved economic outcomes. Women-led businesses increase economic diversity and productivity. Hence, women's role in trade expansion is important to economic and social development. That's why we cannot undermine the participation of female labor force, in the world of work. So, looking at this slide, we can definitely say that with gender equality and increased female labor force participation, the benefits are immense, from the economy to the labor market and business, the social benefit for women and men, for the whole society in general. Of course, there is also benefit in terms of gender equality and human development. And all of this taken together will lead to a better quality of life for everyone. Now, let's move on to the Global Gender Gap Report of the World Economic Forum in 2025. No, it was published in June 2025, and it looked into four aspects: no, economic participation and opportunity, educational attainment, health and survival, as well as political empowerment. Okay. So the state of gender gaps by sub-index. This is the global, the result of their study, by the World Economic Forum. The global average is 68.8%, the global gender gap index. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, we can see that there is still a gap that is existing even in this day and age. So for economic participation and opportunity sub-index, it's 61%. Educational attainment sub-index is 95.1%. Health and survival sub-index is 96.2%. And political empowerment sub-index is 22.9%. So this is the percentage of the gender gap close to date. No? And based on this result, again, as I've said earlier, is still the gap is still existing. Okay. So let's take a look at the regional performance this year, 2025, by sub-index. So you have Central Asia, Eastern Asia, etc., up to Sub-Saharan Africa. And so if you look at this, Eastern Asia and the Pacific, it is 69.4%. No? And for economic participation opportunity, 71.6%, 95.3% for educational attainment, 95.5% for health and survival, and 15.3% for political empowerment. Okay. So for APO member economies, okay, for the first aspect or category on economic participation and opportunity, we can see here that the Philippines ranks number 13, okay, with a score of 0.7990, no, under economic participation and opportunity. Okay. For educational attainment, my country ranks 87, and the score is 0.988. Okay, this is again for APO member economies. For health and survival, Philippines is rank 85. And for political empowerment, the Philippines ranks 30, with a score of 0.377. Again, this is based on the result of the World Economic Forum study. Okay. So for the Global Gender Gap Index, the rankings, again from APO, based on APO member economies, the Philippines ranked 20, and it is followed by Bangladesh. Then you have Singapore, Mongolia, etc., etc. So it kind of puts the Philippines at in a good position, considering that we're talking here of 148 economies all in all. No? no? Or 148 countries, no? Out of so we are the 20th rank out of 148 countries. Okay, so it now puts to question, why does the Philippines rank high in the Global Gap Index, particularly in economic participation and opportunity? So it puts to question this. So why are we in this rank? Okay. So let's take a look at this. Okay. The Global Gender Gap Index indicators. You have the economic participation and opportunity, the labor force participation rate. I think in the interest of time, I'm not going through each of this. But we can see here that in terms of economic participation, this number where we are ranked 13, and it's and in terms of professional and technical workers, it's first. We have this score 1.00. It's a perfect score. Okay, so if you look at the male-female ratio from 2021 to 2025, what does this table mean? We can see that there is only a slight difference in terms of the number of male and female, no, the number of male versus female in my country. So, for example, this year in 2025, according to Statistics Times, we have more than 58 million, 330 male. And the female, we have the same, 58 million, 535. So we are actually, the females are actually higher in terms of number this year. Yeah, but historically, the male-female ratio is not that the gap or the difference is not that big. Okay. Okay. So, what then are the drivers of female labor force participation? I can say that is economic necessity. Why do women engage in paid work? Because of added income for the family. It's really the major reason why women enter into paid work or the labor force. And also, there is a strong social acceptance of women working. So it has become kind of something that is normal or natural for us for to see women in the labor force engaged in paid work, whether they are in formal work or in informal work setting. Also, the high female educational attainment. So if you look at this male-female education indicators, no, looking at functional literacy rate, basic literacy rate, completed elementary, completed secondary level, and completed tertiary level, you can see the difference. And this slide will tell you that there are more female in my country, females who are functionally literate than men. If you look at the numbers, the basic literacy rate is also higher, also slightly higher for completed elementary level, high for completed secondary level, as well as completed tertiary level. Okay, so in other words, in terms of educational attainment, more women are educated, I should say, than male in my country, at least based on this is a, figures from the Philippine Statistics Authority. Okay. We also have a high female labor supply. Of course, owing to the fact that there are more females in my country, so it is just logical that the female labor supply is also higher in my country. So looking at this population of 15 years old and over from March 2023 to 2025 in my country, so you will see that for the female no, labor supply, it's really not that big in terms of gap, again, between male and female uh, who are 15 years old and over. Okay. For employed persons, okay, for employed persons, um, we have male, female employed persons, and but here, okay, you can see that there is actually a gap. it's kind of significant because, for example, in 2025, you have 28 million male employed, but only 20 million female employed. No? And we will discuss this further. Why is this so later, no? In my presentation. Okay. Also, through time, the role of women has changed. As I've said earlier, it has already become a norm or normal for women to engage in paid work in my country. So if you look at these key employment indicators by sex, as of August 2025, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, the labor force participation rate for female is 54.7%. Employment is 96% versus 96.2% for males. The unemployment, however, is higher for females, and the underemployment is higher for males. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Also, another factor that drives women to engage in paid work is the job opportunity and availability of flexible work arrangements. This is very, very important. This having flexible work arrangements because it gives women time to also do their reproductive work at home, but at the same time being engaged in paid work, whether they are in the formal or informal setting. Also, the expansion of the service sector. 76% of female employment are in the service sector. Another driver is the strong legal framework supporting women workers. And that leads me to the next slide, which is, of course, the government policies that drive female labor force participation. Okay. No less than the 1987 Philippine Constitution. It states, which by the way is the highest law of the land, the 1987 Philippine Constitution. It states that the state shall afford full protection of labor, local and overseas, organized and unorganized, and promote full employment and equality of employment opportunities for all. In other words, the state recognizes that there has to be equal employment opportunity for all, for men as well as for women. And it is stated in the 1987 Constitution. It is recognized. Okay. Another policy that we have, which really is very significant, no, for us, and really this is a very important, a landmark policy for women, is this RA or Republic Act 9710, or the Magna Carta of Women. It levels the playing field by making productive resources and economic opportunities equally available to both men and women. We also have RA 10151, which is an act allowing the employment of night workers. This act provides measures to protect women night workers, particularly before and after childbirth and during pregnancy. Next is we have Republic Act 6725, which is an act strengthening the provision on discrimination against women with respect to terms and conditions of employment. You see, discrimination, okay, prohibiting discrimination against women. So this is very important, a very important legislation. It makes unlawful for any employer to discriminate against any female employee either in terms of a lesser compensation compared to male employees or in terms of promotion and training opportunities and study and scholarship grants. So it only gives the same opportunity for both men and women workers. We also have another law, which is Republic Act 11210, which increases the maternity leave period to 105 days. Before it was just 60 days. with an option to extend for an additional 30 days without pay and granting additional 15 days for solo mothers and for other purposes. Another is RA 7322, which increases maternity benefits in favor of women workers in the private sector. It is subject to some conditions, of course. Current female employees who give birth, have abortion, or miscarriage are entitled to 100%, take note, 100% of their present basic salary, allowances, and other benefits for 60 days. And yes, the Republic Act 11313 or the Safe Spaces Act of 2019 defines gender-based sexual harassment in streets, public spaces, online workplaces, and educational or training institutions, providing protective measures and prescribing penalties therefore. And in 1995, we have the Gender and Development Budget Policy. It mandates all national government agencies, government owned and controlled corporations, state universities and colleges, and local government units to allocate at least 5% of their annual budgets to programs and activities that promote gender equality. That's why, with this policy in 1995, all government agencies are required to allocate 5% of their annual budget solely dedicated to programs and activities related to gender equality. These are just some of the policies that we have that drive female labor force participation. We have so many other policies, but in the interest of time, I only included these major policies. Now, let's move on to what then are the issues and challenges. Now that we have the policies, what then are the issues, the concerns, as well as the challenges? Because still we are faced with all of this. Okay, so of course, the reproductive role of women. Okay, this is something that is inherent in women. No, so it's kind of course, the reproductive role, the biological, I have to say, role of women. It is something that is inherent. Okay, for the reproductive role of women, it refers to domestic labor, the performance of day-to-day tasks, taking care of children, maintaining the household, and of course, the bearing of children, which is as I've said earlier, it is the biological makeup which is inherent to women. And social norms, yes. Sad to say that there are still cultural expectations in terms of domestic responsibilities, which are still ingrained in us. No? And we just have to be able to fully crush it. No? And we also have what we call the double shift expectations. Like, for example, for a woman, you are engaged in paid work, but you are still expected to do household chores when you get back from work. When you are at home, you are still expected to perform your reproductive role. Also, the social pressure to choose safe or flexible jobs, considering the reproductive role of women, and that also is a big challenge or a major challenge for women to enter into the labor force. And so you just choose safe jobs or flexible jobs. As I've said earlier, it is very important for women to really have this flexible work arrangement. What else? If you look at this, the mean hours worked in a week. Um, in August 2024, male devotes more time to work, to paid work than women. So in August 2024, it's 40.9 for male, and for females, it's 40.4. And for male in July 2025, the gap is higher. And it's 40.2 for males versus 41.8 for females. So Looking at this persons not in the labor force by sex and age group, we can see that um, let's look at the total on the right side. I think it's on the right side. Yeah, this one. So we have still no more male who are more female who are not in the labor force versus male who are not in the labor force. So it's more than 18 million persons not in the labor force for female versus more than 9 million for persons not in the labor force for male. So it's a significant number still. That's why it's really still a challenge until now. Another challenge is the high fertility rate. Okay? Why is this so? A decline in population, of course, would give the working age population better chances of being employed. The decline in fertility rate would have long term economic benefits as more investments could be channeled into children's health and education. And considering that the Philippines is a developing country and we have also our own issues and challenges in terms of our economy, and that means we have a limited resources. So that's why high fertility rate becomes also an issue when it comes to FLFP. And according to this study by HUT in 2024, by 2035, according to this study, the Philippines is likely to be one of the only three Southeast Asian countries with a fertility rate above 2.0. So maybe for other countries this is not a problem, but for the Philippines, it kind of becomes a major problem or issue. Next is the unintended consequences of government policies. Like for example, the expanded maternity leave law. No? Employing women now is perceived to be costly by employers because of maternity leave entitlement under the expanded maternity law and other leave benefits under the Magna Carta of Women. That's why if there are only two applicants left, one is male, one is female, most likely, no, organizations or companies or enterprises would choose to hire males. Okay. The gender gap in human capital. The existence of gendered segregation in trainings and tertiary education confine women to certain jobs or limits their opportunity to join the labor force. So, women, for example, are inclined to engage in education, hospitality, the services sector, etc. But in education for male, they are more inclined. More male are into STEM. Okay. Another is the lack of opportunity or available jobs suitable to women. There is a mismatch in the jobs available versus the knowledge and skills that women have. Also, due to differences in the levels of economic development, infrastructure, and technology among the various regions of the country. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is something also that is a major problem or challenge in my country because among regions, there is that big gap in terms of economic development. Next, the natural disasters. We are along the typhoon belt in the Pacific, and the country is vulnerable to natural disasters, and this affect women who are in vulnerable jobs. Like in a year, we experience more than 20 typhoons. You could just imagine, and the typhoons now they are becoming more destructive and maybe because of climate change, and so it also affects women. The lack or lesser access to resources and credit. Women have limited or no access to credit and financial services and health services, which can be attributed to financial constraints, lack of quality infrastructure and equipment, and geographical barriers, among others. So if you look at this illustration, according to the World Bank Group, no, the maternal mortality rate in the Philippines has improved, according to them, from 204 in 2000 to 84 in 2023. No? But the maternal mortality ratio is the number of women who die from pregnancy-related causes while pregnant or within 42 days of pregnancy termination per 100,000 live births. No, so still, no, in the Philippines, 84 women die per 100,000 live births due to pregnancy-related causes. No? And that number is still high. Next is trade policies. It brings in jobs, particularly in sectors such as electronics and semiconductors, garments and textiles, BPO and services outsourcing. However, it also harms local industries in garments, agriculture, and small manufacturing sectors which employ many women. And because of this, okay, the consequence is they engage in informal, insecure work for women. There is no social protection or unionization and lower bargaining power and wages. Okay. So what then now is the impact of low FLP on productivity? Of course, is lower economic growth. There is a gap in employment between men and women, which presents an untapped potential of women in the labor force. Also, lesser pay and lesser social protection, or worse, the absence of it. Excuse me. Higher engagement in informal and precarious works. Okay, many women are are engaged in informal work. Okay, which has no social protection. Excuse me. Low representation in key positions. Still, men dominate in leadership positions in my country. Slower limited career advancement. Low participation in policy making. There is still low number of women in, for example, engaged in politics. Perpetuation of the gender digital divide. So again, this is where the educational attainment also comes in, where men are inclined, or more of them, more males are engaged in STEM. Okay, so what are the lessons from the Philippine experience? First, education parity is a strong foundation for labor productivity. When women access high quality education, they enter the workforce with competitive skills that raise sector productivity. Second lesson, linking women to high growth sectors dramatically increases national productivity. Third, a strong legal framework enables women to participate steadily and safely in the labor market. Fourth, women's economic roles, whether local and overseas, because we have also many women who work outside the Philippines, contribute significantly to macroeconomic stability and productivity. Women's entrepreneurship contributes to local productivity, job creation, and community resilience. Next lesson, visible female leadership reduces gender bias and improves organizational performance. Next lesson is that trade policy can be a powerful lever for integrating women into productive, globally competitive industries. Eighth lesson, gender inclusive HR practices increase firm level productivity and competitiveness. Ninth, addressing unpaid care work frees women to participate fully and productively in the labor force. To conclude, the country still has to address its structural labor inequalities, unpaid care burdens, occupational segregation, weak policy enforcement, cultural norms, and the feminization of migration. As I always say, we have already achieved so many, but we still have um, a long journey to go. No? Uh, we have reached many milestones, but we still have so many things to do. in terms of gender equality. However, as I've said, it has already gained significant milestones in bridging the gender gap in productivity, primarily because of existence of progressive gender and labor laws, cultural acceptance of women as economic providers, high literacy rate and educational attainment, offering the opportunity, to engage in flexible work arrangements and expansion of the services sector. So, gender equality is not just a social commitment, it is an economic strategy. So, that ends my presentation. These are my reference materials. Thank you very much. As we say in my country, maraming salamat po. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your informative and insightful presentation. Again, let me encourage viewers to leave their questions for Dr. George with their name and country in the YouTube live chat section. We welcome your active participation. So, Dr. George, we
Yes.
have received one question and a few comments. So, can I introduce one question for you?
Okay.
Okay. So, this is from Mary. The question is, to achieve true gender equality, I believe that men's understanding and cooperation are essential. What should we do to draw awareness of men? So this is a question for you.
Yeah. To raise awareness of men, I
Mhm.
have to say that it has to start at home. I think we women also have a major role to play in order for us to be able to really bridge this gender gap. For example, as a mother, uh, we should teach our sons to also perform household chores. For example, if as a mother you tell your sons, oh, don't wash the dishes, it is supposed to be a woman's job, then that means that at that young age we are already not bridging the gap. We are actually perpetuating the gap. So we it has to start at home. We have to educate not only our sons but also our women as well as our husbands, the
Mm.
whole family. In other words, another is to also include as topics in the education, in the curriculum, um, about gender equality, gender development. It has to be included in the curriculum from the very beginning. In other words, from the primary level to the secondary level up to the tertiary level. Because it cannot be done by government alone. It cannot be done by having in our case laws alone. No? We know that uh, this is something that has to be given that attention, not just by government. It has to be the approach should be not only integrated but also multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder approach.
So you emphasize the approach as a family or as a society, okay, to address
Yes,
this issue. Yeah. So
yes,
she also commended FLFP is good, but women might be overwhelmed due to heavier responsibility of both official and domestic work.
yeah.
Cultural and social norms and structural transformation of society are necessary. Then also, maybe Mr. Mahlock agreed with this idea. So, what do you think about this?
Yeah, you are right. And in fact, we have what we call the sandwich generation. No? What is the sandwich generation? It refers to women who for who are engaged in paid work, but at the same time, no, you have to attend to your household duties and responsibilities. and you are raising your children, but at the same time you are also taking care of your aging parents, and so it's really difficult for women. So that's why um, I I would like to really push for having structural support system, like for example having that universal child care for for women, reduced unpaid care burden for women, and also this one is very important for women to also have the opportunity to engage in flexible work arrangement, so that you are able to somehow juggle between paid work and unpaid work or domestic work. Yeah. So the system, the structure has to be there. The universal child care, for example, um, giving incentive, for example, for companies who will uh, have programs related to childcare, so that women can also be free, from the burden that will be placed on them when it comes to raising children. So childcare and care infrastructure is very important.
Hmm. Okay, thank you very much for your answer. So the FLFP itself doesn't address this gender issue. So we need the comprehensive and the societal changes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for for the advice. So now I would like to ask some questions according to your presentation. Okay. So first of all, let's focus on the keys for higher economic participation and opportunities in the Philippines you mentioned. Okay. In your presentation, you mentioned that government policies were keys. Which of these policies have had the most measurable impact, and what gaps still remains in terms of enforcement?
Okay. One of the one policy which I can think of is, of course, the expanded maternity leave. Another is the Magna Carta of Women, the Safe Spaces Act. And these are significant milestones, in my country for pushing or bridging the gap between male and female labor force participation. And of course, the biggest remaining gap is its enforcement. Enforcement.
Mm.
Even if you have laws, if the enforcement is weak, the goal, no, or the purpose of these laws will uh, will not result to what is intended to be. So also in terms of childcare and care infrastructure, it has to be really there. That is another gap. And the weak monitoring is another gap which I can think of. And of course, there is still the cultural norms that really um, make it slow for behaviors to also change. Yeah.
Okay, so you emphasize the importance of enforcement. So how does the Filipino government ensure the enforcement of those laws?
Yeah, we actually have, for example, for the Magna Carta of Women, which is for government offices or agencies to allot 5% of our annual budget for gender-related activities. We are actually required to report every year what activities or programs have you done related to the gender. So that's one way for government to monitor that, the reporting system.
Mhm.
And of course, this since it is mandated by law, we have no choice but to really allot that 5% to gender-related activities and programs. Yeah. So and I think that's what that's how government ensure the monitoring is the reporting system. But of course, we still have so many things do when it comes to really being to really ensure that the intention of the law, for
Mm.
example, the Magna Carta of Women, are really fulfilled or satisfied.
Okay. Okay. So the another key, as you mentioned, is high female educational attainment, especially at the tertiary level. So how can this advantage be better leveraged to address persistent challenges like occupational segregation and female low representation in leadership roles?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to high female educational attainment, it can only be a powerful engine for gender equality if it is matched with reforms that remove systemic barriers. So there has to be a channel education into high value male dominated sectors. It has to be fixed. It also has to fix institutional biases in recruitment and promotion. Um, what else? Build leadership pipelines tailored to women, reduce unpaid care burdens to women, and of course, transform gender norms that restrict the impact of women's education. So, education should be paired also with opportunity, the structure, and support so that it becomes a true equalizer between male and females.
Hmm. Okay, so initiative by employers or those, companies, organizations are necessary, okay, to
Yes.
complement, okay.
Yeah.
So it is related to my next question, that is third key, the strong service sector. Okay, so the third key you mentioned is a strong service sector in the Philippines. So we learned that 76% of FLFP in the Philippines belongs to the service sector. So it is
Mhm.
indeed a big driver for FLFP in the country. But as you mentioned, on the other hand, there are remaining challenges outside of the service sector. Okay. So what strategic efforts are necessary to diversify FLFP outside of the service sector?
Okay, we can look at it at the two sides, no, of strategies, the supply as well as the demand side. So for the supply side, we have to have gender responsive STEM and technical education, apprenticeships and vocational training for women, and strong talent pipelines for industrial, green, and agricultural sectors. For the demand side strategies, there has to be gender inclusion requirements for industrial incentives. Like, for example, you incentivize organizations or enterprises that employ more women, for example, upgrade labor inspections and anti discrimination policies, and, of course, safer transportation and workplaces. Also, the structure is also very important, the structural support system. Again, the universal child care, uh, reducing unpaid care burden for women, and yes, the cultural shift toward women in high skill non service roles. So it's not just about moving women out of services, no, but you see, opening equal access to all sectors where productivity and wages are higher.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. Okay. Now, I would like to ask about the persistent challenges in the Philippines. Okay, the first one is about informal and the precarious works of women. So you discussed that higher engagement in informal and the precarious works is one of the ongoing challenges in the Philippines. So what strategies are required to ensure formal and high quality jobs as well as adequate social protection for female?
I think the overarching concept here is having access to decent work. Uh, Pathways have to be cleared so that women can enjoy or experience secure and be employed in high paying sectors. Also, better monitoring of labor rights, not just well written policies. Having, again, comprehensive care infrastructure for child care, elder care, parental leave. These are pillars of female economic empowerment. Also, the social protection that follows the worker. You are not tied to whether she is informal or informal work. And I think this is one major problem, no, in my country, because um, more women are into informal work, and it means that they do not enjoy the social protection afforded to women who are engaged in formal work. Of course, having gender transformative norms, no, because of regulation can only go so far. So we have to have that cultural shift also. And how do we do that? Again, um, including in the curriculum uh, topics or subjects related to gender and development, and also again, the cultural shift has to start at home.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, so you mentioned the significance of childcare or maternity leave, those things, but currently there is a significant decline of FLFP at the age of 25 to 54, with assumption due to marriage, giving birth, and childcare. Okay. But you mentioned in the presentation that the companies feel costly to hire women of those, ages. So given those situations, what further strategies should government and businesses adopt to sustain and further increase FLFP?
Yeah, what comes to mind now is really the having affordable and accessible childcare for organizations. If I may share my personal experience, because I work in the university, um, my children, they are, when they were still young, in fact, when they were still young, they used to uh, also be with me in the office. So uh, they literally grew up in my office, so, if I may say. In fact, I would bring my
Wow.
child, for example, in class.
Well,
And really having this affordable and accessible childcare is very, very important. Also, having shared parental leave and norms, no, change in unpaid care work, and high quality reentry pathways and flexible or secure work options. That's why having flexible work arrangement is very, very important for women.
okay. But yeah, as you said, companies feel those are kind of, cost, right?
Yeah.
So how
I
can be, addressed?
Yeah,
Mhm.
first we have to change that. Again, we will go to that cultural shift or that mind shift. And don't look at it from the point of view that it is cost. You look
Mm.
at it actually from the point of view of productivity. As I've said in my introduction, a diverse workforce, this is based on studies, improves productivity of organizations or enterprises. So we
Mm.
really have to change that
The
mindset.
mindset. Yeah,
Yes.
it's not the cost, but it is an
Yeah.
investment for the future.
Yes. Yes. You're right. No,
Thank you.
instead of looking at it
Mm,
as an expense or as a
mm,
cost, you look at it as an investment,
mm, mm,
as
mm,
something that is integral or significant to the productivity of the organization.
Okay, thank you. Then my last question is about low political empowerment. So in global gender gap, the Philippines ranks relatively lower in the index of political empowerment. So what specific structural or cultural barriers prevent highly educated and economically active women from achieving higher participation in policymaking? So also, what policy could close this gap and increase the FLFP in the political position?
Oh, well, while in the Philippines, you already had two women presidents, but still, generally speaking, it is still dominated by men. So it is because of the dynastic dominance and patronage politics. And women who are engaged in politics, sometimes they are engaged in politics as actually as a a substitute. For example, the term of the husband has ended. Now that the position is in turn given to the wife. So the wife in effect becomes just a substitute. And patronage politics, instead of looking at it from the point of view of merit, it's actually based on one's popularity. This is unfortunate. Also, in the Philippines, and I think it's also elsewhere in the world, it is extremely expensive to engage in campaigns, and it requires a lot of money. Another, of course, is the structural political reforms. No, we have the weak party system, and parties, for example, in the Philippines, we do not systematically actually recruit or train women. Okay? Again, as I've said, candidate selection is personality based, not merit or membership based. So I think what we can do is to have legislated gender quotas in political parties so that political parties will be forced, to have a certain number of women and increase the number of women engaged in politics. And also launch a public campaign financing with gender incentives. Like, for example, maybe government can provide matching funds or subsidies for parties that nominate women. It kinds, like incentivizing political parties that nominate women. Also require a minimum percentage of funds directly to women candidates. Another is to really push for this anti-political dynasty legislation because Philippine politics is, historically speaking, it's really handed down, it seems, from one generation to another. In fact, we have had, I think, two presidents who came from the same family. One is the father, the other is, I think, three, no, including at present. So the parent became a president. Now uh, the son and two sons and one daughter became the president. So historically speaking, it's really the dynasty in the political sphere in the Philippines is obviously present. Also, pushing for childcare and care infrastructure for public servants, having mandatory gender responsive leadership training for political parties. I think this is something that has to be explored because as it is now, pushing for this gender responsive leadership training is not mandatory. And how do we increase women's political empowerment? So we have to improve role models for young women. We have to also push for pro women labor policies, again, like childcare, flexible work, equal pay. Also, to expand women's access to decision making and economic opportunities, and strengthening care infrastructure that reduces career interruptions. So, those are just some of the things that come to mind now.
Okay,
To
yeah, thank
answer
you
your
very much
question.
for your insights. So it seems like, the strategies are, basically common regardless of the sectors. Yeah. Then I just would like to add that the ranks of the Philippines in the political empowerment is lower. I mentioned, but it is actually the second among the APO members. So I think there are many things that we can learn from the Philippines case still. Okay, thank you. So now we have two more questions from our viewers. So I would like to pick. Okay, so the first one. This is related to the relationship with the population. Okay, so are there any studies on how women empowerment and FLFP impact population growth? So what is the impact of women's empowerment and FLFP on the population?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For now, more and more women are engaged in paid work. And really it also impacts on their fertility, because more and more women now are focused in their careers. In fact, young Filipino women are career oriented, and having a family is a second priority, I have to say. And if I may share, I have students who really who said that they just want to get married, but they don't want children. Or some of them would say, "No, I don't want to get married. I want to focus on my career." So it really impacts on our population. In fact, um, many young professionals in my country are not really keen on starting a family or getting married. So it has an impact.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Then the last question is there any correlation that countries which are facing a declining population also have score low in the global gender gap index? So
Yeah,
maybe I think it mentioned, yeah, it is about, yeah, those countries who have declining population. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Any relationship?
Yeah, to a certain extent, there is a relationship, but I just didn't it's not included though in my report, because I just focused on the Philippines, but I would like to believe that there is a correlation, definitely. Yeah,
Mm.
because if the population is low, especially if there are lesser women, no, in terms of male female population ratio, it really has an impact also on their productivity. And if
Mm.
it impacts on their productivity, it is logical to say that it also has an impact on their economy overall.
Mm, yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. So, due to time constraints, we will need to conclude the session shortly. So, Dr. George, could you please share a final message with our viewers, particularly those from other member economies?
Yeah, I think I would like to emphasize the lessons from the Philippines, and we've I have shown the various gender related policies that we have, but it does not end there, and we have to learn from the experience of the Philippines that really, if we want to bridge the gender gap of male and female. Between male and females, and it has to be that the approach should be integrated. It cannot be done by government alone, it cannot be done by having laws alone or policies alone. um, Bridging the gender gap starts at home, and all stakeholders have major roles to play in order for this gap, either to eliminate the gap, or at least lessen the gap.
Okay. So, I would like to express my gratitude once again for your insightful presentation and inspiring remarks. Okay. Today
Thank you
we
very
explored.
much.
Thank you so much too. Today we explore the Philippines' experience with gender equality promotion and increasing FLFP, as well as its implications for other member economies. Achieving gender equality is a complex, long-term issue that requires a systematic approach to address its root causes, which are deeply embedded in our societies and economies, as Dr. George mentioned. However, we are encouraged by the progress made through the multi-stakeholder initiatives. I believe that the Philippines, which has the highest ranking among APO members in this area, offered valuable lessons today. The APO recognizes FLFP as a key element in fostering inclusive engagement and shared prosperity. We hope that we could continue to provide platform with our members for dialogue and knowledge exchange on this critical topic, fostering better opportunities and quality of life for all genders across all our member economies. I look forward to the next opportunity in the near future. So, Dr. George, thank
Yes.
you so much again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Then thank you also to viewers for your active participation today. Okay, so see you next time. Goodbye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.